Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the TruthSeekah and Aaron podcast. I'm one half of that duo. I'm TruthSeekah, excited to be with you for another amazing episode. Today's guest is Nahum Vizakis. Nahum shares his story about working with plant medicines, coming out of the military with all types of trauma, and how the plant medicines worked with him to heal his trauma so that he can become the best version of himself. Nahum specializes in mind, body, and spirit coherence, optimizing the mind, body, and spirit to perform as one. We covered a lot of ground in this episode, some controversial topics, so buckle up, you're in for a treat. But first, I need to let you know about our upcoming retreat. We have a retreat in Sedona, Arizona, February the 26th through March 1st. We're going to be doing breathwork sessions, Cacao ceremony, Stargazing, CE5 contact. It's going to be amazing. We're also going to be doing a concert, TruthSeekah and Aaron concert. Aaron will also be hosting one of her sacred sound immersions. She's going to be doing a sound bath. So make sure that you go ahead and get your tickets because space is limited. February the 26th through March 1st, 2006. We hope to see you there. Get your tickets now at truthseekah.com. Without further ado, my guest today, Nahum Vizakis. Bro, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me, brother. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
Just right off the bat, just kind of icebreaker. This isn't the only show you've been on. You were
No.
on another show. You were on a show that was physically challenging, mentally and spiritually demanding. You were on Wipeout.
Yeah, that was a long time ago, but that was one of those bucket list things, you know. I got a message actually from the one of the producers on Facebook a long time ago, but it was 2012, and they were like, "Hey, you want to try it?" And I had never even watched the show before. I was like, "Let's do it," and I didn't really prepare for it. That's why I kind of got my butt handed to me. But it was you know it's something I could show the kids, 10, 15 years down the road.
Yeah.
Look what daddy did.
Yeah, we were hanging out with our online community, and I was talking about these upcoming podcasts we had, and we all watched it and stuff, and it reminded me of a much simpler time, coming home from work and watching those episodes in the evening. It was really
It was a
interesting.
much simpler time back then, brother. A
Yeah,
lot has changed since then.
it's different, watching it from the comfort of your own home versus getting punched in the face by the big gloves and
Oh
and
man,
things
I'll tell you
slapping you
what
and all that
too.
stuff.
When I went to do that show, I ended up there was like 50 of us, right? The theme was brains versus bronze, and I was the third person to go. It was like 5 in the morning. It was in February in the hills of LA, and it gets cold out there, man. It was like probably in like the upper 40s, lower 50s, and the water, underneath the theme park,
Yeah.
if you will, it was just above freezing. So when I got hit by that first hand smacked me off the table, that water literally threw me in a shock. I could barely function after that. But you know what? It was a good time. I caught hypothermia,
Oh wow.
but you know what? YOLO, man.
Yeah, man. Well, like you said, a bucket list thing is really, you know what I'm saying? And you got the footage too. It's one thing to have it and like can't be able to find the footage. The footage is there if you look it up on YouTube. So that's really cool.
You just type it on YouTube, man. It pops right up. 3 minutes of hilarious me getting my ass kicked. So
Yeah.
get it.
So from that stage in your life, from you were in the military, you served in the military. We
Yep.
know that comes with its own responsibilities. It comes with its own its own world, and a lot of people who serve come back a little jaded. They come back different, and they
Everybody
need
does.
some assistance, and they need help. And for you in your spiritual awakening, I'm gonna let you frame it up, but like which came first? Like was the army a part like of that? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Dealing
so
with
I
that
was in the
trauma
army for
and
10 years, and
yeah,
I was EOD, which for those of your people that don't know, EOD is essentially the bomb squad for the military. So we worked for uh, um, a lot of special operations teams and missions, and I got blown up a few times, and I had some close calls, but what it really taught me was my relationship to death, or like the fear of death. I had never really, like, when you're in school, like you're training, you're not going to die, it's safe. But when you go out into combat, into the real situation, when you could really get blown up, that hits you different. And then, everybody responds to that experience the first time in one of three ways. They either fight, flight, or they freeze. And I froze. And when I froze, it pulled something to the surface that I didn't understand at the time. And that was really my first like spiritual awakening moment. It was really more of a breakdown of my identity because here I am, I spent 2 years going through school learning how to do this job. And I thought that I was going to be a lifer. And when I came into that experience, it made me question everything about myself, who I was, what I was motivated to do and not do. Ironically, right around the same time is where I found bodybuilding as well. In fact, my first bodybuilding competition was in Iraq. I was Mr. Taji '09. I won the overall, and I
Wow.
kind of caught that bug, But just a few months after I competed in that show was when I kind of got my bell rocked, and then I started having like really bad personality conflicts, if you will, with the people in my unit. And that kind of started like a downward spiral because I realized deep down, although it took me a while to admit this to myself, that number one, I didn't want to die. Number two, like this wasn't what I wanted to do for a living. But I was already in Iraq, so I had to be there for the next. I ended up being there for about 18 months, and that was a very long time to be over there. And once I got back, things were very different. I didn't feel the same. I kind of felt betrayed by my unit, and I talk about this in great depth in my book, The Indigo Flame. But that really started me on my path to seeking. Right, I've been a truth seeker like yourself, and so I started in that environment. And back then, that was 2009, 2010, like all the things that are available and out now, like peptides and plant medicine, and all these different modalities, they didn't exist. Nobody knew anything about these things. So I started by going to churches and getting baptized and try to figure out how to fit into my understanding of my relationship to God. I was in a bit of an existential crisis. And so I decided once I got in the military to go to college for psychology to learn about my own mind because I had some friends that committed suicide and that died or got really sick from the processes that they were going through in the military. So I didn't want to be another statistic, right? So as I was learning about my mind, it didn't really fully feel right. I felt like something was missing. And it wasn't until 2014 where I discovered ayahuasca that changed everything. And the biggest thing that hit me, really, really hard was the first time that I drank ayahuasca, I was terrified. Right? I went to go, drink that first cup, and my heart's beating out of my chest because I had bad trips, on LSD when I was younger. And I was thinking, oh, what if I have a bad trip here? Am I going to go, like, can I pull myself out of it? What am I going to have? What's going to happen? I knew that going into this, I had to fully surrender, and I had never done that before. So when it first came over me, it hit me in the opposite way that I thought it was going to. I felt this warm, loving, soft presence. And I felt for the first time in my life the frequency of love. And when that feeling hit me, it made me question everything because clearly everything that I felt before that time was not love. At the time, I didn't really understand what it was. Now, after doing many, many years of work, I realized there were attachments from my abandonment, my rejection issues from growing up. And, there was probably some past life stuff in there too. But that started me on the path to looking at my childhood, looking at my relationship with my mother and father, because, as I'm sure you well know, every issue and situation and balance in our life comes back to our relationship to our caregivers, our mother and father, right?
Yeah.
So, so I started to realize that all my relationships with women, I was mirroring the abandonment issues from that, and also my understanding or concept of what it meant to be a man, what it meant to be a father, a provider, a caregiver, and how the world tells us who we need to be and how easy it is to get caught up in that, as opposed to who we really are inside and what we really value and what we really want. Like in the military, they have a code of ethics, right? Ethos that you're meant to live. But when you don't experientially learn these things when you're a child, you can say and regurgitate and intellectually map these things out, right? But to actually fully embody these ethics, I feel a man needs to go through the dark night of the soul, essentially the hero's journey. And as I started working with plant medicine, I feel like that was really the start of my hero's journey to awaken and grow and realize that, I was operating from a fundamental place of, ego, and I was blind to it. I didn't understand it until the universe started mirroring back to me how out of alignment I was. And it took me many, many years to go through that hero's journey. I finally feel that I made it to the other side, though, and it's quite a relief, because there was, a period of time there for like 3 or 4 years where I wasn't sure if I was going to make it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something else, man. That's interesting that it was the female thing is what came to you, or what ayahuasca allowed you to deal with, or see from a different perspective. That was definitely a huge part of mine. You know, the way women were treated, and the women that are suffering and abused and things like that. And um, I guess just in the world, but even in my life, especially, the women that,
Yeah,
mean a lot to me were all like struggling in many ways and stuff. And just showing me that whole aspect from their perspective was truly powerful. But
beautiful, man. Yeah, I feel like there's also right now, in the world, there's a major awakening, cleansing, purification process going on. And we're really getting a chance to look at our deepest wounds. Everyone is. That's why we're having all these, plant medicine and biohacking and peptides and all these things are starting to get so much notoriety, because it's difficult to trust like the systems that are in place anymore. I feel like all those are going away. But you also look out in the world and you see there are broken families everywhere, man. It's so
mm,
sad, right?
yeah,
And I feel like it's our duty as men, awakened men, at this time, to be able to take the responsibility to honor the women in our life. In order to do that, though, number one, you have to look at your relationship to your mother and see where is that relationship, and how healthy or unhealthy is it, and then do the inner work to be able to really connect to yourself. Because when you're in love with a woman, or when you're in a relationship with a woman, right, that's a direct mirror reflection of the parts of you that you haven't looked at yet, right? So like, I didn't have a healthy relationship until just a few years ago. And when I finally was able to not run away from it, I would always run away, be like, I don't want to deal with this shit, right? But when you finally stick and you sit in it and you move through it, you will learn things about yourself. And we need men to be able to gain that emotional intelligence, to be able to really create a new conscious way of leadership, right? And a lot of the male leaders that I'm seeing out there, this day and age, stoicism is like a major topic,
yeah,
or a major thing that men are promoting. But I think that there's a major aspect of that missing with how men uh, interpret what stoicism is at its core. Because a lot of men think, oh, you either stuff your emotions down, or you compartmentalize it. But in contrast to that, I believe that true stoicism is mastery of your emotions, not suppressing it, right? It's a completely different pathway to master them, because you have to learn how to really be incredibly vulnerable. And vulnerability is not something that men typically, especially like the more alpha kind of men, vulnerability is not one of those things that's very easy for men, but that is really where you learn to embody your true empowerment, right? I like to say that I have grown to learn how to be power filled as opposed to powerful, right?
yeah,
That sense of empowerment is when you can walk into a room and you're humble, but you see truth, and you act with authenticity, right? You allow yourself to feel these feelings and you do it anyways. But when you do it, especially as a leader in this world, You have to embody what you believe. And as you do, you have to do the hard work, meaning that if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And you have an intention and a purity to the reasons behind what you do. And if you can follow those ethos or that very basic and simple code, because what I see a lot of people is they'll say one thing then do another. Right now, you can change your mind about something if you feel like you need to shift, but you need to communicate that, and then it needs to be real time. All right, I made this decision. Hold on, I sat with it, I meditated with it, and that doesn't fully feel right. Let's go in this direction, and this is why I'm doing it. Right, presence and intentionality is so important.
That's good, bro. You're real passionate
Thank you.
about that too, and that's good. I appreciate that. We need it.
Have to be, man. Have to be. We need more men out there to be taking responsibility and hold it down for the world, because like a lot of these men that are in power out there in the world, clearly they're not making really great decisions, or they're greedy, or they're trying to hoard, or like I gotta have all this stuff so that I can be okay. But what if we have enough, but we take the excess and we put it into things that make the world a better place, teach other men and help guide and grow, so the level of ignorance goes down, while the meekness, and that's another word that is grossly misunderstood. Like in the Bible, right? It says the meek will inherit the earth. Well, that doesn't humble, yes, is a part of it, but it's also one that has discipline, and so one that could sort of wreak havoc if they needed to. However, they restrain themselves for the greater good of everyone involved, right? And they take their knowledge, their wisdom, and their purity, and they imbue that upon their environment. And when we do that and we support each other, now challenge and competition to a certain extent can be very healthy. However, we see out there in the world that there's too much polarity in the process of competition, right? So like you look at like the political arena,
Yeah.
which is crazy, right? You're either on this side or on that side. Well, how about we all, find the common ground for everyone? Let's all work together. And if you're not willing to, then you got some inner work to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you can't sell that. That's the thing. I mean, that's the. I feel like
Yeah.
the Matrix. They're trying to get our attention and show us that like we know the truth isn't all the way on the right or all the way on the left, but
Right.
the most rational people can understand that there's a narrow path. There's a silver lining where both sides have some great points, but also have some atrocities and some stuff that we shouldn't get. You wouldn't catch me co-signing or repeating and stuff, and you but if you're married to that party, you can't speak out against it, you can't critique it and say something bad, because it's like you go against the party. So I think the majority of people who are awake or whatever, they find the truth, and the balance is in the middle. It's not pledging your allegiance to a party, but it's somewhere in the middle.
100%.
And we know that this system doesn't really advocate for that.
Yeah, and I'm really, I'm really hoping that that's changing or
Hmm.
going to change. We see changes happening, but all the darkness has to come up first
Yeah.
to be acknowledged and purified and cleared. And so this is exactly why, like, we have to stand up as men that live by this authentic nature, and we have to stand up and take action and be present with the process and make it happen. So this is why I'm here today, because I feel like that is my mission and
Hmm.
purpose, to take all these difficult lessons that I've learned and to educate and teach people, because the world doesn't teach these things,
Yeah.
unfortunately, right? So we have to support our brothers and our sisters in the world to help to find that common ground for the greater good of everyone,
Yeah. I agree,
right?
man. So there's a couple things you mentioned and want to kind of go back to, circle back. Just curious,
Yeah.
as a seeker and a podcast host. So you mentioned starting out kind of like going to churches and getting baptized and things like that early on. Like where did that lead you, or leave you, for lack of a better term, in your
Yeah.
seeking process.
So in the military, like that's really all the options that they provide. So I went and I tried different denominations, I think, non-denominational Christian, uh, Protestant, yeah, there was like 5 or 6 different ones. I can't remember it at
Hmm.
this point because it's all very confusing. But I remember this one particular time where I went to this church with a buddy of mine, and I was really struggling at this time, like with really severe PTSD. I was on a bunch of medications, and I was just trying to find myself again. And I remember this one gentleman came over, and he's like, "Hey, can I pray over you?" I was like, "Sure, well, let's give it a shot." And then suddenly, before I knew it, there was like 25, 30 guys coming over to me, and they all put their hands over me, and some of them started speaking in tongues, and I was weirded out, man. It kind of freaked me out a little bit, and I did not feel supported. I actually almost felt like I was getting like sucked into a cult. Now, that doesn't mean that I think that Christianity is a cult. I actually believe in the teachings of Jesus. I think that he was trying to show us how to be. He wanted to create leaders, not followers. And I feel like that's a very important
Yeah,
distinction
that's
to make,
good.
right? So I was doing all this research even when I went to college, right? I studied world religions, and I got into Buddhism as well, and I really resonated with the concepts and philosophy of Buddhism more than anything else. But even still, it still felt a little empty, or just it still felt like it was missing something, man. And I realized because I was still coming from that egoic place, I didn't crack my consciousness open to understand my own connection to my heart and to my higher self, and that's what I resonate with. Now everybody resonates with their own particular thing. I personally believe, this is my subjective belief, that everyone connects to God in their own way, right? And I feel that me opening my heart from all the heartache and heartbreak that I experienced from childhood, that kept me from connecting to my higher self. Our heart is is equivalent to the Holy Spirit, if you will, right? So when I finally, like I said, when I sat with ayahuasca for the first time and I felt that feeling of love, I was like, this is what they're talking about. The love, the unconditional cosmic love that cannot really be defined or explained to you. You have to experience it,
Yeah.
right? And as far as the plant medicine world goes, that's really what spoke to me. That and astrology. Um, I feel like astrology is esoteric psychology,
Hmm.
because and esoteric just means hidden, right? So there's so much taboo and so much brainwashing that goes into the definition of these words that we really have to step back and realize, so if I could come up with a different word to explain it, I would just say it's maybe spiritual psychology, because the planets represent archetypes of our consciousness and the houses represent areas of our life. So when I got my first astrology reading done, it spoke to my soul, similar to how others will read scripture and that speaks to their soul. Well, astrology spoke to mine. So that's what I went with. So when I combine the understanding and the intellectual concept of astrology with the experience of the love through plant medicine, boom, now it makes sense, right? So once it started making sense, that's when I really went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So I was combining the consistent discipline of training my physical body through bodybuilding. But for me, bodybuilding was a very spiritual experience, because connecting to my body helped me learn who I was on a physical level. The astrology helped me intellectually understand my behavior patterns and the habits and the way that I acted out in the world. And then the plant medicine helped bring up this recognition of this empathic gift that I had. I didn't understand the concept of empathy or of being a highly sensitive person, or I personally resonate with the indigo child, right? Um, when I did my fourth iboga flood dose, I actually turned into a indigo flame, and that's actually kind of like what the centerpiece, the nucleus of my book, the Indigo Flame, is all about. But The different plant medicines to me were different teachers. Like ayahuasca was like the divine mother, right? She's a cosmic feminine sort of entity that teaches us about our divine feminine nature. Iboga to me was the divine father. That he was more like a drill sergeant to me. Like you got to look at your shit and face your shadow. And Iboga was whole different level, even in the whole plant medicine world. Bufo dissolves the ego, right? So if we get in our own way and our mind is too strong or stubborn, it helps us dissolve that understanding and it cleanses and purifies the egoic mind so that we can really stay in alignment with our consciousness, that mind heart connection. And then combo, I feel, is like nature's doctor or nature's vaccine. It cleans the
Yeah.
body and purifies the biochemistry to help reset all the systems that are going on in the body. So between all those different teachers, I was able to face and truthfully look at all the different parts of myself to where I feel like my divine feminine and my divine masculine were able to balance out and even out. So now I've gotten to the point where I'm able to really sit with my emotions, let them process, and go out in the world without being a slave to my triggers, right? And just for your listeners, right? Like your triggers are your teachers. So if there's anything in your life that is triggering you, which a trigger is defined as anything that gives you an involuntarily emotional reaction, right? When we can sit with that, let the trigger move through us, let our central nervous system calm down, and then we can go back to center where we're not emotionally heightened.
Hmm.
We have control over our emotions, true stoicism. Then we can make important decisions and not run away from them,
Yeah,
right?
triggers seem like I think a good way to describe it is like having an open wound. And like if somebody touches that open wound, it's gonna trigger you because you're gonna
Yeah,
jump, you're gonna
hurts.
jolt. But like you said, like that's the place where healing needs to, go to, that we need to give it some care. And so
Yeah,
yeah, your triggers end up um, showing you the areas in your life that need some healing. So
yeah,
good,
and
yeah.
really, the trigger is the pain that we're afraid to feel, and that fear can come through in many insidious kind of ways, right? It can come, the fears can come through telling yourself that it's just stupid and you don't know this is, it's not worth my time, or insecurity, or issues with finances, or sexuality is of course a big one because our sexual energy is our life force energy, and we're seeing an epidemic with sexuality in and of itself, right? Through the trans movements, all the toxins that are messing with our hormones, right? The hyper masculinity and this alpha, this over alpha kind of attitude, which I kind of find it's actually ridiculous. That screams insecurity to me, right?
Yeah.
So we have to be willing to be extra vulnerable and look at our triggers to face our fears, because fear and also too, these are all embedded in our central nervous system, right? So it's really at the very core in our physical body, it's about recalibrating our central nervous system so that we can, and breath is the number one thing that helps us gain control. When we can use breath work to activate the vagus nerve, and that goes to the peripheral nervous system, and it's very uncomfortable, but once you learn how to work with it, man, you want to talk about empowerment.
Yeah.
You're able to real time take your power back and not let that throw you out of alignment. But the number one requirement for that is that vulnerability. You have to be willing to say, hey, maybe I was wrong, maybe there's something for me to learn here, and to sit back and allow yourself to be coachable and teachable through whatever experience is going on to make that happen.
Yeah. And I mean that's uncomfortable. And plant medicine, put you in a situation where you have to. I always like, the easiest way for me to describe it is like, what you're going to experience is usually the thing that you've been trying to run from, or you've been trying to pretend that, um, you know, didn't happen, the thing you've been
Right.
suppressing. And it's usually the thing that's preventing you from going to the next level. It's,
100%.
serving as this kind of like a block in your life, like you mentioned, sexuality. That's a huge block for people.
Yeah.
Finances for a lot of people is a huge block, and so there's these things where like you're ready to get to the next place and have success in these areas, but you can't, and it's like over and over and over again. It's something that's blocking you from having uh, flow of energy,
Yeah.
of a flow of success in those areas. And the crazy thing is, a lot of times we don't know what it is. Sometimes we do, but many times we don't. And so I think that plant medicine kind of acts as this, what I say is, like a God's eye view at your situation and at your life. That's a constructive way of like, hey, you're
Mhm.
dealing with this, and I'm gonna help you get through it. You said like the voices sound a little bit different. The teachers are a little bit different. Sometimes they're more loving and more gentle, but you've worked with other plant teachers that are a little bit more, hey, get your stuff together and
We
quit being a wimp kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. Especially, I'd say, well, Iboga probably scared me the most. It's 26-hour long, journey.
Wow.
And also too, like you really have to do a lot of testing. It can severely dehydrate you, and that dehydration can go so far where you can actually have a heart attack and die if you're not careful.
Mm.
So you got to really, really be careful. Also, I've seen twice when I was in training, learning how to serve bufo. I saw a couple people that do too much of that stuff, man. And you go into what I learned the term spiritual psychosis, which if it cracks you open too much too fast, it's kind of like a Kundalini awakening, right?
Yeah.
If that Kundalini gets too active too fast, your mind can't process it all in real time. So you really have to work yourself up, and that's all related to the depth or ability to face your fear, right?
Hmm.
That fear, we create stories in our mind, right, based on the experiences that we had, and it's embedded in the central nervous system. So when that cracks you open and you dissolve your ego and you become nothing, your identity shatters. And if you're not really mentally able or willing to do that, stuff comes up and you don't realize it's even in there because there's three layers of knowing, right? There's we know what we know what we don't know, and we don't know what we don't know. That don't knowing what we don't know part, I feel, is where plant medicine comes in and brings it open because it opens up the portal between the subconscious and conscious mind. And the subconscious mind runs 95% of our lives, right? So if you're trying to process through the 5%, your conscious mind, the 95%, I mean, that's like a glacier underwater. You got to do it in little pieces, and everybody's different. I've seen some people that do one ayahuasca ceremony and they're good. Their life changes, and they get it and they feel it and they understand it, and everything's like a whole big reset. And there's others like me where I did thousands of ceremonies before I even started serving
Oh,
medicine.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, everybody's different and you got to respect it. And that's the thing about it too, was like you have to know that because you can easily, try to project, hey, you have to keep doing it, or just a one and done. I mean, I could see us projecting on both sides. Um
100%. Yeah.
but again, everybody's different. I remember like the first time I did well, the second time, the first time I did a hero dose of psilocybin was
Mhm.
super profound for me, and I mean,
Nice.
just radically life changing. And I knew it was going to take me months to work through, if not years, to work through all of the epiphanies and the experience that I had. And then some of the guys that were with us, like on this little men's retreat, they were like, "I'm ready to do it again next weekend." I'm like, there's no way. They were trying to get, and I was like,
Yeah, you
no,
gotta
dude,
you gotta be careful.
it's gonna take me months for that to work through that. And again, if not years. The people who went and did it again the following weekend,
Mhm.
they had what you call a trip. They were in the bathroom screaming for hours, praying, thinking the devil was trying to get them. I mean, it happens, and you know what I'm saying. But like, you got to respect it. I think it kind of makes you respect it, and if not, maybe that's where the psychosis can come into if you get a little bit lax or kind of let your guard down a little bit. Like it's one of those things that where people would try to think that Americans can abuse things, is what we do.
Yeah.
Anytime we find something good, we find ways to abuse it. But I feel like it's, the really potent plant medicines won't let you abuse it,
Oh yeah, they'll. I know when I first started working with ayahuasca, the lessons or the reflection from the universe, situations in my life with relationships that I had, they started reflecting back to me louder and louder and louder until I really got the message. Right. So yes, the integration is the most important part of the ceremony, if anything.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, I did. And I wasn't saying I've done thousands of ceremonies to gloat or for me go at place, saying that I felt the call because I felt like they were teaching me.
Yeah,
That
for
was my
sure.
education, right? So and I went through a short phase, probably about a year and a half, where I got hit hard and I had to learn some tough lessons. They were mostly around women, right? Because I was coming out of the bodybuilding world, and in the bodybuilding world, I started to get attached or even addicted to that external validation, right? And at the time, I was definitely abusing steroids. I was taking super physiological amounts, way too much, and I didn't realize that um, when you throw, especially your hormones, out of whack to that extent, it strengthens your ego so much that there's a threshold, and everyone's threshold is a little bit different. But when you push your egoic mind into that place, you can get lost in the external gratification because I was getting a lot of attention from the outside world. And as I was feeding that, I was getting like, it's all I could think about. It was all I was looking for. And eventually, like it was mostly around women, right? Like I dated a lot of women and, broke some hearts. And then finally I got my heart shattered pretty hard. And that was, really the next step. That was right around 2015 where, thought I had met my twin flame at the time. And, I was super just vulnerable and oogly boogly. And it was really the first idea of what I thought was love after I had learned what love was from ayahuasca. And when I got into that, it was so overwhelming. The feeling was so intense that all my insecurities and all my fears about relationships started to come in. So I would start creating these stories in my mind, right? Like, oh, who's she texting? Or she must be talking to this guy or that guy, right? Like I was insecure that she was doing the intimate things with other people that I thought was only special to me. And eventually I ended up pushing her away and creating the exact circumstance that I was paranoid of. And so really, like if anybody is in a situation like that, because I know a lot of people are going through a lot of stuff right now.
Yeah.
And relationship stuff is coming up big time because the things that are no longer in our highest vibrational good are being called out for everyone, which really, when I look at that and I think back to all the work that I've done over the years, it makes me incredibly grateful and humbled that I was able to do all that work back then. So now I can see it right before it gets bad, or I can help a lot of people because I've been there, and the experience, the energy speaks, for itself. But what's really cool is that as I was going through these learning experiences and processes, I started to realize that. So I went to massage school in 2014, 2015. And this was after I had been competing a lot. I took a step back. I had a bit of an identity crisis when I placed terrible in a show. And when I stepped back, um, and I went to massage school, one of the first things they teach you is get into your beingness, right? Which is essentially just meditating and getting fully present and getting ready to engage in a very deeply energetic, vulnerable process. When I started learning how to do that, it was interesting. I started getting these like visual imprints in my mind when I was like working on people. And I remember this one time, it was about, I was maybe a month or two out of school, and I was working on this female client in Las Vegas. And I remember I'm working on her lower back, and I get this image in my mind of a little girl getting into a car accident. And up until this point, I didn't really think anything of it. I thought, well, my imagination is playing tricks on me or whatever, right? But this time it was really strong. So I just figured, okay, I'm gonna ask her, right? Like if this resonates with her. So I stopped for a second. I was like, hey, were you ever in a car accident when you were a kid? And she looked up at me crying with, like amazed that I just asked this question. She was like, oh my God, I was just literally reliving this car accident that I was in when I was 8 years old. How the hell did you know that? And I was kind of like blown away too. So that really spiked my curiosity. And what I came to realize over the years was that through all the difficulty and the trauma that I've experienced through my life, it was actually the process that broke open this spiritual gift, this energetic gift that I have, where I'm able to connect to emotional trauma in the physical body and extract it through. Now it started with just physical touch, but it ended up evolving into I can use vibration. So I'll literally start to sing, like when I'm working with someone, I'll start to sing Icaros, and I listen to medicine music. And as I'm using my voice, and I also use a vibroacoustic sound lounge, right? The vibration really helps to relax the nervous system. And I'm able to connect to the emotional trauma, and through the vibration and the physical movement, I'm able to pull it out just through my intention. And then of course it's 10 times more potent while on plant medicine too. So it's really fascinating because I know that I've met other people along the way that also have gifts similar to this, and I believe that right now we are in a time when our DNA is being activated, and we are all coming into our deeper healing gifts that are inherent within us, and that is coming into what some people call the fifth dimension, or Christ heart-based consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the frequency of love, I'd say the frequency of love, and then the frequency of authenticity is like right above that. And as we sit in that vibration of love, and then we speak and we act upon our truth through authentic means in a pure way, that's exactly what Jesus did, right? He was already fully in his heart space.
Yeah.
And so he was able to just set his intention and do all this powerful, unexplainable at the time healing work. And I believe that many of us, especially empaths and intuitives and highly sensitive people, we're all coming into our gifts to be able to serve humanity as, like they say in the Bible, the meek shall inherit the earth, right? Well, we are the meek, the healers, the ones that had a really rough childhood growing up, the ones that have been diagnosed with different things like even autism or ADHD or depression or anxiety, all these different things. They're catalysts because we live in a sick society. And it's really interesting to me that these powerful healing tools are illegal. It's crazy to me, right? But of course, we all know why, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't want people to open up and feel love, because then the powers that were won't exist anymore because we don't need them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in Alabama, so it's like
You're in the Bible Belt, bro.
the last place here, and then like they just made like CBD illegal again.
What?
Yeah, yeah,
CBD?
yeah, yep. It's
That's
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah, and so they had
Wow.
what was it uh what's the plant from slipping my mind right now, um the plant that's like a muscle relaxer.
Like kava, kratom,
Kratom. Yeah,
kratom.
so Kratom was legal here, and then
Oh yeah.
a couple years ago they made that Schedule 1.
Schedule one.
Yeah, people were getting off of like opiates and stuff. But if you get caught
Yeah.
with Kratom, it's essentially like getting caught with heroin. It's insane.
That's nuts.
And it was legal. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, because the corporations out there, they're trying to monetize everything. It's in the peptide world, it's the same way. These peptides, they're so healing, and they're able to literally, if you get on the right cocktail for your specific issues, you can heal virtually anything. I'm not
I
making any claims here, right? But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying I've seen it, it's possible. And the FDA is going around, taking them off the market and then putting them back on the market, changing the name, changing little things because they want to try to patent it and they want to make money off it.
Yeah.
Because if they can't make money, look, peptides in and of itself is going to put the pharmaceutical industry out of business.
I
They'll
need more
probably have to go
information
out.
from you. I have my neighbor does peptides, speaks highly of it. Is in the gym
Okay.
every day. Um, another good friend of mine, they're all talking about peptides. There's a lot of people in the health movement, and I haven't equated it with this like mind body wholeness aspect. Like, what are the benefits from using peptides?
So first, you have to understand the mechanism of action of what peptides are. So all peptides are is they're sequences of amino acids, and these amino acids act as signaling molecules in the body to tell the body to do a specific function. Okay, so there are different peptides for different things. One of the most popular ones out there is BPC 157. Right, that along with TB 500 is they call it the Wolverine stack. BPC 157 is body protective protein 157. So it goes in the gut and it activates gastric juice flow, right? It can even help to heal inflammation in the gut. It'll protect the gut lining. So if you have candida, if you have a lot of parasites or any severe gut issues, it can literally heal all these things. Now, it's not that's a little bit of an oversimplification, right? But depending on where your health is at, you can talk to a peptide specialist, and they can create a specific protocol to address all the different issues and symptoms that you have. There, TB 500, activates certain interleukins in the immune system through the thymus gland to supercharge the immune system to deal with certain functions, mostly around inflammation regarding connective tissue, right? But you have thymosin alpha 1, which is also activates different interleukins. It can help. It's really good for autoimmune issues. But if you have like a viral infection or COVID or anything like that, it'll help squash it almost immediately. There's LL37, which specifically kills off parasites, fungus, mold, yeast. Right? There's dihexa, which goes into the brain and it activates. It shoots up BDNF by about 10,000%, which can actually create neuroplasticity and rewire neural circuitry. There's Salank and CMAX, which are great for depression and anxiety. You don't need SSRIs, right? So depending on what situation you have, and this is incredibly individualized to everyone that has something going on. But like, say you just had an injury, you got in a car accident, right, or had a surgery. You can take some of these peptides, and it'll quadruple the speed of healing in your body, right? So being able to take this substance, this amino acid sequence, to signal something in an organ to be able to do a certain function, you can literally turn anything around, right? I've even seen there's a couple new peptides that are coming out. One's called Clotho, and that one can actually turn around chronic kidney disease, right?
Hmm.
There are certain peptides that will repair mitochondrial function on multiple different levels. And I don't know if you know this or not, but mitochondrial dysfunction is essentially the root cause of virtually every autoimmune issue and every disease, because when you have your body fighting against each other, it takes all the ATP and all the mitochondrial juice out, and it exhausts essentially like the cellular function. And when you're exhausted, then these the parts of your immune system, they can't communicate loud enough, right? The tug of war is speaking louder than the proper communication. So what this does is it corrects communication, just like if you're going to a therapist for marriage counseling, right? That third party, the therapist, is going to interpret what one person is trying to say to the other, and then you can understand it. Once you understand it, oh, okay. So now what do we do? What action do we take to fix this, right? So you also need to focus on nutrition, and of course, we're bombarded with toxins from air, water, food everywhere. So I would say detoxification is it's not really an option right now in this day and age. It's a requirement. especially as we get older, you can literally reverse your biological age. I'm 47 years old, and I'll tell you what, I feel younger and healthier than I ever have in my life, right? I back in 2019, I tore my right tricep and labrum, and I was able to. I used exosomes and stem cells along with BPC and TB500, and I was able to heal it naturally without surgery.
Mm.
Right? So literally anything that you can think of, there is a natural way to balance it out. I don't even like to use the word disease because, again, there's a lot of taboo. Like a lot of people that still follow the old system, they think that cancer is a death sentence. Emotionally speaking, all cancer is repressed rage, right? It's a decision that you made at some point in your life that your heart felt fully against, but you did it anyways because you're compensating somehow.
Mm.
So you face that emotional issue, boom, the healing process begins. But that also means that you have to take action and change the patterns of behavior in your life so that you don't continue the same problem. It's literally a protective mechanism to make sure, that shows you, hey, I am not in integrity with myself. So I have to do some really serious soul searching and look at myself and ask myself, look, hey, are you willing to go all the way and die for something that you don't truly believe in? And I mean, for me, like the answer is unequivocally no. I want to know the truth. I want my truth because the truth will set you free. But first, it'll trigger the hell out of you. So you have to be willing, again, going back to the triggers, your triggers are your teachers, right? So what's really cool about this, though, if you look at the biohacking world and peptides, and you also look at plant medicine. Those are two kind of different worlds, but whichever way that you feel drawn to go, there is a solution. And that is the important thing to understand. Not everybody feels called to plant medicine, and that's okay, right? You can use exercise and nutrition and peptides and supplementation on that side of things, right? But you have to take some kind of action. And a lot of people out there are grossly out of balance in their life because whatever things that they've been doing for the last chapter of their life, like 20 years of their life, we're all coming into a new version of ourselves, and because of that we have to let the old version of ourselves die off. And in order for that to die off, we have to make changes, and change is not easy for people, but it is possible. But you have to volunteer and you have to be willing to take action and get very uncomfortable and face the fear, face the vulnerability, and allow yourself to surrender. And when you do that, that will dramatically increase your faith because there's always a sort of a threshold of fear and faith, right? So when we're living in a state of fear, we're living out of balance. So when we increase our faith through vulnerability, through surrender, and through acknowledging that, hey, maybe these decisions aren't the best for our life, right? Then we get real, we learn the lesson, and we start to trust our own decision-making process. And we listen to that increases our faith. And when we have more faith, we're not afraid of death. We're not afraid of the unknown. We're not afraid to take different actions because we know that our heart is guiding us, and we have to listen to our heart that leads us in to that higher vibrational place. And that is living a true, fulfilling life. So really in that last 3 minutes right there, I just gave everybody the solution, guys. So let's go take action. Let's get it.
Yeah. Just like you said, I mean, finding out that we have so many allies is a good word, or tools
Yeah.
in our arsenal now. I mean, just in this talk so far, like we've covered so many that
Yeah.
you don't have to be obsessive over one. You know what I'm saying? Of like, this is my one thing. I only do massage, and this is my only modality. But like, it's one of them. You know, we talk
Yeah.
about plant medicine and what kind, and you've named a lot of the heavy hitters, and there's so many like in the plant world that we've like forgotten about, and and
Oh, yeah.
and uh and the small ones that are like growing around us. That's some of the things that we're interested right now. All of the things that are just like the weeds growing in your backyard of like what you need is
Yeah.
probably growing around you. And like all of those things that they teach us I mean, they're not illegal, but they tell you to kill them. They tell you to, pull the weeds up. But
Yeah.
uh, you know, look up the medicinal properties, man, there's my mind's blown daily every time my wife comes home with a different mushroom she found or some type of weird little flower that's growing. It's like, oh, this is what the natives use for astral dream travel. Like it's literally
Yeah.
growing in
Oh
our
yeah.
backyard, and I'm like, I thought we had to go to Peru, and like, all this is literally
Right.
growing in the backyard, unbeknownst to everybody here, just because we've forgotten the ancient path and the ancient way. But again, just the fact that there are so many different modalities that we have, and all of them are here to help and service, that you can literally not have to like abuse one of them or like, what I'm
Right.
saying, destroy its sacredness because you do it so much, or this is the one thing. But it's like all of these things are special, like every single one of them, like, I don't know, they find this place to, keep that sacredness, like,
Hmm.
and we've mentioned a bunch already. Um and there's more we can mention. I want to ask you, like, have you worked with Hapé before, the
Oh yeah.
shamanic
I
snuff?
actually, I actually did some Hapé 45 minutes before this podcast. I love Hapé because it's very grounding, but also, because it's pure ceremonial tobacco. Every single one of our cells in our body has a nicotinic receptor site.
Hmm.
And that number, it's a great nootropic, but true pure nicotine, it'll actually protect against what they call COVID out there.
Yeah,
You'll
we're
never get
finding that
COVID,
out. Yeah, yeah.
right? Very, very powerful medicine. Sananga as well. Sananga is another great one.
Have you tried it? You've tried it in the eyes?
I actually did that earlier today too.
I mean, how was it? We've like we have some friends that have some, but there's everybody's so scared to even try it. Like we have it, but
I mean,
nobody wants to try it.
it's intense. It sucks for about a minute or two, but
Yeah.
again, well, I remember when I first did Sananga, literally my whole body jumped up off the floor, and it was like, wow, what did I just get myself into? But it actually strengthened my eyesight, and it clears the vibration of anger. Did you know
Mm,
that?
wow.
So it strengthens the optic nerve, and it actually strengthens the muscles around the eyes. So I've seen people actually be able to stop wearing glasses after doing like a 30-day, Sananga regimen.
Wow.
Very, very powerful before any other plant medicine as well, right? But also other things like uh, uh, dragon's blood, sangre de grado, right? You can actually use that as a pre-ceremonial purgative. You drink it and then you chug water and then you just puke it up
Mm,
and it kills off parasites and mold and fungus, right?
wow. Yeah.
Um, did you know that down in South America, down in Peru, they actually have hospitals that are plants only, thousands and thousands of plants where they combine these different plants and they can literally heal virtually anything, right? And in this industrial age, of course, it was deliberate, but they moved away from all these things. I do feel that there's a revival going on right now, right, with all the functional medicine, the integrated medicine, and also with technologies that are diagnostic. In fact, I used to have this device called an AO scanner. Have you ever heard of it?
I don't think so.
So AO scanner, it's a diagnostic device, but it can also like infuse water and other substances with frequency. But
Okay, is that
uh,
okay? So that's that. Yeah, that's the medical device that reads your frequency, right? And it can tell you like if you're dead or whatever. It'll show you your frequency, right? Is
yes,
that
but what's really cool about that I really like is we have trillions of bacteria in our gut, right? Our gut is, I like to call it the third brain. We have our gut, we have our heart, we have our mind,
mm-hmm.
and they all speak together. And when we get them all in alignment, boom, that's where we're in our purpose, and we shoot to the
Yeah.
moon. But what the AL scanner can do is, now I'm sure they haven't mapped all trillions of bacteria, but they have quite a few, and it'll actually show the corresponding emotion to the pathogenic bacteria that are in your gut. I did this experiment one time, which is really cool. Before my third Iboga flood dose, where I did an AO scan before, and then I did an AO scan after to see the difference in my gut microbiome and the corresponding emotions or like thought forms that those bacteria were creating. And I'll tell you what, there's about 95% elimination of negative thoughts via the pathogenic bacteria that was in my gut,
Wow.
right? And that just blew my mind and opened up a world of new conceptual understanding to where like healing the gut is everything. And they are specifically attacking the health of our gut, right? I mean, if you look at autism, autism is a gut imbalance. Any kind of psychological issue is a gut imbalance. So focusing on your gut health, that's why I don't really prescribe to like a specific type of diet, whether it be the vegan diet or carnivore diet or zone diet or whatever other thousands of diets they have out there. That's coming from the wrong direction. What we need to do is we need to map our gut and identify what bacteria there and what foods we can eat to feed the right bacteria and starve the wrong bacteria. That's why everybody's different, right?
Yeah.
So when we can take it from that approach to customize and individuate the information that we need to know how to make our gut healthy, that's when you will thrive. That's when your serotonin is optimized and all your other neurotransmitters for that matter. That's where you can optimize insulin sensitivity because once we start experiencing insulin resistance, that's the first domino that falls that starts to create all other problems in our organs, including the brain, right? And I can go down some rabbit holes with that, but I want to stay on target here.
Yeah, man. No, no, no. It's good stuff. Because it all ties in together. That's the beautiful thing, right?
Yeah,
You
it
know what I'm
does. It
saying?
really does, man.
Yeah. Speaking about one thing and then it, ties into these other subjects and categories, like talking about plant medicines and gut health and how
Yeah,
it's the science of the spirituality. They're
exactly.
tied
That's exactly
together,
what it
or the
is.
psychology part of it. You could bring that in, or the astrology part of it, because they're all
Yeah,
these different modes or dimensions or ways of explaining the same thing. That's the most beautiful thing of it all, because like all of those people who are like experts in all of those fields I just named,
hmm,
you can see an ego thing that tries to come up of like, this is the way.
right, right.
Christianity is like, this is the way, or, well, no, it's Buddhism. No, it's this. No, it's astrotheology. It's really, the Bible is this metaphor of the stars and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And the beautiful thing is that it's all of those things and more,
It
and
is.
like
It is when people are
everybody's
open-minded
right.
enough to see that.
Yeah. And when you have somebody who can bring all those pieces together and let them sit at the same table and have a conversation, because they can't do
Yeah,
it on their own. It's very beautiful, and I feel like I've been blessed enough to talk to as many people who are experts in these different fields and be able to
sure.
see the silver lining for myself and try my best to communicate that to an audience as well. But it's the beauty in it all.
Absolutely, man. I fully agree with you. And that's why I went out of my way to study all these things because each one of them, there's like 90% truth, but then it's all coming from a subjective perspective
Yeah.
based on wherever their consciousness were at when they chose that,
Yeah.
right? So we have to take that into consideration.
Or the language, because like,
Yeah.
the whole Bible story of and I want to kind of tie this back into your story a little bit too. The whole
Okay.
Bible story of the Tower of Babel, like, I'm big on this, is where people were coming together, and something happened, and the gods came down and changed their language so that they couldn't understand each other. So we find
Mm,
us speaking to different people, whether it's, whether they speak a different language, whether it's Christians trying to talk to Hindus. We can talk about Christ. We can talk about Krishna. We can talk about the seven churches of Revelations, or the seven chakras within the body. Like, all we could be
mhm.
saying the same thing, but there's different words because there's a different language that we speak, and that goes through every tradition. And we don't understand each other, and it got us fighting against each other. Um, and that's totally what's happening. But it takes somebody who's able to sit and listen and see those synchronicities, that are within all traditions or within all schools of thought. I wanted to tie that into your story a little bit too, because I wanted to get your take. I mentioned Babel, and
Mhm.
Babel and Babylon. So you were in Afghanistan, which
Iraq.
again, Iraq, which still ties in because there is no like ancient Iraq. They were named something else,
Right.
Sumer and Babylon, right? And all of these
Yep.
places that are the ancient cradle of civilization, where now a lot of people are looking back to Sumer and Babylon
Yeah.
and the Akkadians and the oldest, not manuscripts, but because manuscripts wouldn't have survived, but tablets of these stories, of these biblical stories that predate the Bible and all of this kind of stuff. Like you were
Right.
there.
Yep.
Have you had any epiphanies? Have you felt called to look into, the Sumerian tales of the Babylonian Atrahasis and the Enuma Elish and all of these ancient texts from over there? Has there been something? Because you were actually over there.
Yeah, so again, when I was over there, I wasn't as aware as I am now. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really think in this way right now. But what's really interesting is that my name, my first name, Nahum, the original name is in the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
He's a minor prophet,
Mm-hmm.
and he was from the town of Nineveh. Well, I actually got to run a mission in Nineveh, in this place called Mustache Island. I don't know why they call it that, but uh, so it was really interesting to go back to the land where the original Nahum was. And it was that mission for me was more like a dog and pony show. There was a couple Iraqi generals, and we just had to blow something up and not call it a day, so it wasn't a big deal. But I'll tell you what, I think that they have deliberately kept that area of the world in ruins because there is a special nature about the land. There's something over there that is most definitely ancient and sacred, along with it, and especially over in Gaza, that area over there. I personally believe that there are portals, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
but they make it so dangerous and so nasty that they don't let anybody over there. I have limited knowledge about like the Sumerian tablets and all those different ancient texts. I
Mm-hmm.
listen to Billy Carson,
Yeah.
about that stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that I know enough to be able to really break it down. And my experience over there was mostly I was just focused on the military.
Yeah.
I just found it was I found it really fascinating to be able to be at the same place where the original
Yeah.
Nahum was.
Yeah. That sounds like a
But
setup.
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
but I do think that there is something very special about that land out there, and there's a reason why they keep fighting over it. I don't think it's a reason that anybody has really put out there to acknowledge yet, or maybe they have. I just haven't heard about it yet. I do think that there is something significant that is happening over there, spiritually, energetically speaking, that is going to come to the surface, and we're going to learn it eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Right?
agree. I agree. I think that's where everybody's looking. They keep, we can't not look over there for some reason.
Very, very true. Very, very true. And I really do hope and pray that you know, you know, that peace will, come and prevail. Because I'll tell you what, just going over there, it's like going back to like the 16th century. It's barbaric. It's like people are living in mud huts, right? Well, you have people living in mud huts in little communities, and then you go into the city where like Saddam's palaces were, and you have these ridiculous, over the top. Like I was living in one of Saddam's palaces for a while in Baghdad, and this thing had a bathroom with like 28 urinals and like 30 stalls where everyone, it was like gold plated and they had bidets. And I mean, like one of his houses had like a whole Disneyland theme park for his kids that had elevators in it, went underground, over like crazy, crazy stuff, like a roller coaster, the whole nine. So you have people living like this with servants and like a king and queen, and then a majority of the people are living out of mud huts. They don't even have electricity,
Yeah.
right? It's not okay.
Yeah. He
Like
believed he believed he was the The reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar, I believe it was. I believe. Well,
Wow, man.
yeah, yeah. Saddam Hussein. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. But there's just so much corruption, and it's everywhere. It's universal in those the three-letter agencies and governments and all this stuff. But the
Mm-hmm.
good thing is, it is coming out. It's being called out slowly but surely. I think there's some really, really dark, nasty stuff. I mean, I've you know. I ran quite a few missions with some SEALs and some special forces guys, and some of the stories, man, I heard I believe I was one of Saddam's generals, right? He had this pet tiger, and this pet tiger was super, kind and nice to human beings, but well, men actually. But whenever the tiger would see women and children, it would lunge at it and like he wanted to eat them. I think that they were feeding like women and children to this lion for lunch, which I mean, I personally don't understand how a human being like that's the definition of a sociopath or a psychopath. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that have those tendencies. And I also do believe that that power is shifting to people that have empathy and that feel human emotion. And I think that we are the next generation coming into power to be able to even the playing field and get rid of all this darkness, man. There's just too much darkness out in the world. In fact, there is this. It was a couple months after I did my fourth Iboga flood dose, where I was working with my mentor at the time, and he introduced me to these three young ladies, 18, 19, and 20. They were doing a documentary. They were all sex trafficked from the LA foster care system. Tragic. I mean, you want to like I thought I had a rough life, and then I talked to these girls, and it was nothing. And they talked about the experience they had in great detail. And I did some work. I actually did I created this therapy I call a cocoon experience, which is a ketamine infused bodywork session on the vibroacoustic sound lounge. So when I was pulling out the emotional trauma in these girls, it was the darkness that I felt was unlike anything I had ever felt before. When you mess with kids and you take that purity, that innocence away from a child through any kind of sexual abuse, I just there are no words of how disgusting and dark and nasty that kind of stuff is. We need to protect our children. And any human being, in fact, I think you can't be human to do that, something like that, right? Like to get any kind of pleasure out of hurting an innocent, pure young child, or this whole adrenochrome thing too, which these people that have just gained too much power and they almost do this kind of stuff for sport. It is enraging and it is disgusting. And the good thing is that now these people are coming, they're speaking out, they're letting the world know that this stuff is going on. But even a lot of people, like you hear these stories, and a lot of people won't even believe it because a lot of people can't even like consider that these things are even really happening, right? But the truth is, man, there's some darkness out there that is beyond what probably most people's comprehension is. But I
Yeah.
also believe too that the reason why people like myself, and I'm sure there are many, many others out there that are coming into their empathic spiritual gifts. And it's our responsibility to humanity to be able to share those gifts to help these people heal. There is so much healing that needs to happen in the world. And this is why I'm on your podcast and getting out there and speaking, why I wrote my book, because I want people to be able to see and understand and know that there are people out there that can help and that can heal and that want to do this very important work, because it's stabilizing the energetic signature of our species. And as we can see, there's a major crisis going on in the world where we need to get our shit together, like
Hmm.
now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah, it's time for you to show up, the world needs you, and
Exactly.
we hear this, we are the ones that we've been waiting for.
Hmm.
There's somebody out there that
So
needs
true.
you. Like for me, I've always found it like the easiest to do these podcasts or to create whatever it is that I create, whether it's music or meditation stuff like that,
Yep.
to just to be what I needed, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
you know what I'm saying? Years ago or this week, like be the friend that you needed this week, be, that person. And so you always have that audience and you always know what to do or what to create if you'll just, you know, remember what you needed when you were at that vulnerable moment, when you needed a friend,
Absolutely.
when you needed to listen to music. I create music and it's like, okay, what kind of music should I have been listening to? What kind of content should I have been consuming? What kind of podcasts and
Right.
talks like that? So if you can remember where you were, because there's somebody there now, you know what I'm saying? There's probably hundreds of thousands of people who are in that same spot, and they feel
Hmm.
alone and feel like they have nobody to talk to, and all this kind of stuff. So if you can reach out and speak to that, former version of yourself, because they're definitely out there.
Yeah, and even if you don't know what to do, right? Go explore. Go try new things. Like that's I feel is a big part, especially at the beginning of the seeking process. When you're seeking that truth within yourself, sometimes you don't know what you like or
Yeah.
what you want to do, right? So you got to get out of your comfort zone and see, okay, I tried this, it's not for me, but at least now I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And go into the unknown, and just going into the unknown in and of itself is a major learning experience because then you're getting to know a different part of yourself. Are you afraid of the unknown? Are you a OCD control freak? Do you have this way that you need to have your whole environment, in control, which is really impossible, but a lot of people try to think that. That's an overcompensation, right?
Yeah.
Get out there and explore. Try new things. You'll be amazed at how much you discover about yourself. Especially, I don't like living in one place. Like I know a lot of people that live in one place and never leave that place
Yeah.
like for their entire life,
Yeah.
right? A lot of the education that I got was from seeing other cultures and being in different continents and going to different places and seeing how other people live as a contrast to how I grew up and how I lived. Right. That's one really great thing that I'm grateful for the military for getting me to see so much of the world and understanding like wow, there's but like you can go to like Iraq, like I felt like I was stepping back in 400 or 500 years the way people were living.
Yeah.
Even like South America down in Peru, right? Nobody exercises down in Peru, at least in like the rural areas, because they're all planting food and they're all like they're just moving around every day. Like I remember I was walking around there and these little guys like, dude, you're like He-Man over here. But I was actually I was with my girlfriend down there and we went up to stay at this cool spot that was like 11,500 feet elevation, and I got elevation sickness. That never happened to me before. I was freaked out, so I had this little Peruvian guy walking around. He had like an 80 pound, bag on his back, and he's just humping it. And he's like, "Come on, bro, let's go." Like I'm like, I can't breathe. I'm like sucking over here, and I'm this big dude. I can't function, and I have this little guy that's running circles around me. And that was a humbling experience.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh man, bro, I've enjoyed this conversation. I got one more question for you before we go.
Bring it on, brother.
All right, so talking about doing energy work and being able to remove negative energy and trauma out or off of other people, right?
Hmm.
Out of their bodies, and there's a lot of people experiencing that and doing that, and I've done a little bit of that. My question to you is, what do you do with the energy once you remove it? Do you take it onto yourself? Do you just take it and throw it away? Do you offer it to God? Do you put your fingers in the soil and give it back to the earth? Like, what do you do? Because I found taking it upon myself, wasn't healthy. I thought,
No, no,
what
no,
I'm
not at
saying,
all.
as long as that person's not dealing with it, I've got it and I can handle it, and that's not healthy either. So, what is your regimen, and what do you feel like you do when you're helping move that energy?
So for years, when I started learning that I had this ability, I would take it into myself. And
Hmm.
actually, over the years, it started creating. That's actually how I tore my right tricep and labrum. I was taking on too much, and I started having issues in my posture, my back, and I was getting way out of alignment. and it broke me down. And what I realized was that I had some self-worth issues, and I believe I deserved to take that
Yeah.
pain on. Over time, as I continue to work with these medicines and understand what was happening, I learned how to be an open channel. So I'm not doing anything. I'm getting out of the way and I'm letting it go through me. So essentially, source, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, right? I align myself, I center myself. Now, while I'm doing my work, I'll be seeing, like I said, icaros, and I have the intention of just, whatever wants to come through me, to be able to do the work that needs to be done. Please let it be. I open up the process with an intention in my mind, and when I'm done, I close it up. And I'll usually use like sage or Palo Santo or Florida water. I'll do Hapé before and or after to help cleanse my energy. But essentially, I get out of my own way. I get into like a trance-like state, and I have my sets of music and my processes now like down to a science where I just kind of know what frequencies are going to work with what,
Yeah.
and I just follow the frequencies and I let it flow and I let it go through me. I open it up, I do the work, I close it down, and then usually afterwards we'll have a little 5-10 minute talk of what I felt come through, and then that's it. But it took me a long time to learn that. Probably, I'd say 8-9 years to really
Yeah.
fully master that.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Right.
Cool, man. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
Yeah. So you have some books out. You host your own retreats, and all of that stuff's
Sure.
available on your website. If you want to plug your
Yeah.
website before we go here, let everybody know where to go to check out more about your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, spiritualbodybuilder.com is where you can get my books at. Optimizinghuman.com is where all my other services are presented. And then you can follow me on Instagram at spiritual_bodybuilder. You can message me there. And then I also have a YouTube channel. You can check me out on there, Spiritual Bodybuilder. Just look up Spiritual Bodybuilder and you'll get there.
Heck yeah. And, Nahum, I enjoyed this conversation, brother. It was great to meet you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Brother, it's been an honor to meet you and to jump on here. And thank you very much. And to all your listeners, thank you very much for spending time with us.
Thank you, brother. We'll have to do it again. Thank you.
100%.
All right. Shalom.
Have a good one. I hope.
Aho.